Welcome to the Character Advantage podcast, where sport and the human spirit collide. Because the game will end, but the growth lasts forever. The scoreboard is temporary, the heart is forever. Here's your host, Coach Dan Williams.
I've been thinking about ownership lately. Not the loud kind, not the my team, my system, my result kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that shapes culture without announcing itself. In high-pressure sports environments, ownership is often misunderstood. We think of ownership in this way. It's about control, authority. It's about having the final say. But even the best performance environments in the world are beginning to shift. They're moving away from rigid hierarchy, and they're moving towards a shared responsibility and belonging. They're not doing this because standards are dropping. They're doing this because maturity is rising. So, if I haven't met you before, hi, I'm Coach Dan. I've spent most of my life inside competitive sports as a player, a coach, and a parent on the elite pathway. And over time, I've learned that performance develops quickly, but people need intentional formation. You know, some families have jokingly called me the athlete whisperer. Now, I think it's simply this. I listen carefully and I help athletes hear themselves clearly. That's the work we're doing here at Character Advantage. We talk often about strengthening the person before the pressure. You see, pressure will come, and coaches' styles, they will vary, and team cultures will fluctuate, and windows of opportunity will open and close. And parents, we feel that tension. And we're not afraid of doing the hard work. We're just afraid that our child won't survive the intense competition and that their window of opportunity will close with them on the outside looking in. So the question becomes, what does ownership look like in environments where we don't fully control? Now, here's something interesting. Did you know that Warren Buffett only owns about 15% of Berkshire Hathaway? And Elon Musk, he only owns about 13% of Tesla. And Jeff Bezos, he owns less than 10% of Amazon. Now, none of them own 100%, and yet their influence has been enormous. Why? You see, because ownership at scale is rarely absolute. It's mostly partial, it's shared, it's distributed. Full control isn't the pathway to growth. Shared stewardship is. Now, maybe this teaches us something. In sport, in our family, or in our team, you don't actually own the whole thing. Not the outcome, not the culture, not even your child's journey. You influence it. You steward it. You participate in it. But you don't possess it. Honest ownership begins there. Now, right now, the high school soccer team that I'm the assistant coach of is 2-0. Our head coach recently sent me a note based on the game evaluation feedback our coaching staff submits every game. Now, this feedback describes us as organized, disruptive, coachable, and brave. And it explains our early results. But in the same breath, he acknowledged something else. We are not a great possession team right now. Now, this is not a coach being defensive. He's not panicking. He's just seeking honest clarity. In our pressing philosophy, it's worked. We've forced teams into tight spaces. We've disrupted our opponents who used to beat us. But pressing chaos doesn't automatically build transitional patterns. So we are going to refine our focus on having cleaner possession and transition so that we can create more shots, force more goal kicks and corners. And he even suggested a target of, on average, achieving 6 or more corners per match. Now, statistically, corners convert at only about 2 to 4%. Now, if you're not into soccer, I know I'm losing you, but stay with me because it will make sense in the end. So, 6 corners may not even produce a goal, but that's not the point. The point is repeatable pressure in the channels we want to attack. Better final third entries that force back lines to turn and face their own goal. And if they drop deeper, interior spaces begin to open 20 to 25 yards out in front of the goal. That's where incision passes live. That's where composed shots come from. He wants to do this not because he's trying to control the players, it's the opposite. This is about shared tactical ownership. Coaching players to understand not just what we're doing, but why. You see, honest ownership is not self-criticism. It's the willingness to say, we're winning, and yet we're unfinished. We're improving, yes, but we have gaps. It requires security. It requires having your identity in something solid. So your identity can't be fragile. You can admit that you're incomplete. But if identity is anchored in something deeper, like honesty, that questioning, it becomes fuel. And there's something else worth noticing here. Honest ownership doesn't stand alone. It lives inside a larger framework. So when a team can say we're winning and yet we're unfinished, that only happens if other attitudes are also forming. Now, in another podcast, I talk about humble coachability. Humble coachability allows truth to be received without ego. Honest ownership names reality without excuses. And in another podcast, I talk about courageous conviction. And it keeps us aligned to our purpose when refinement feels uncomfortable. None of these operate in isolation. They reinforce each other. Now, if you remove humble coachability, then honest ownership turns defensive. But when the attitudes work together, something powerful happens. Truth becomes safe. Growth becomes normal. And pressure becomes formative instead of destructive. Parents often ask me, how do I help my child navigate high-pressure coaching environments? You may not own the system, you may not control the philosophy, but you do own the interpretation at home. You own the tone after the game. You own the questions you ask. You own whether wins inflate identity or refine maturity. While you may only have partial ownership in the culture, you have a powerful influence. There's also something humbling here. We are stewards of gifts we did not create, time we did not manufacture, potential already at work within us. When we understand that, ownership becomes less about control and more about responsibility. So in our current season, being 2-0 doesn't belong to us. It's a moment. What we truly own is how honestly we evaluate it, how urgently we refine it, how humbly we admit what still needs shaping. That is the soil where culture deepens. That is the doorway into shared leadership. And that is how character forms quietly before pressure tries to define it. Now, there's one more layer to this. Honest ownership requires something deeper beneath it. Because once you see clearly, once you admit what is unfinished, once you acknowledge what you actually influence and what you don't, watch out, because emotions may rise. You might become frustrated. You might even see impatience, intensity. And that's where the next attitude becomes essential. Strength under control. Not suppressed strength, not passive strength, not even explosive strength. It's directed strength. Strength that does not need to dominate to feel secure. Strength that can absorb truth without reacting. Strength that channels energy towards refinement rather than blame. If honest ownership is clarity, strength under control is composure. And without composure, clarity can turn sharp. So in our next conversation, we'll explore what it means to possess strength that is governed, not by ego, not by pressure, but by purpose. Because the environments our athletes are entering require power, but they require controlled power. So until next time, strengthen the person before the pressure. The scoreboard is temporary, the heart is forever.